Remember how the Stanford band helped California score an improbable winning touchdown?
Back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going into the end zone.
I would have thought that maybe I would be better remembered in the future for something more significant than being knocked over at the end of a football game.
You've got to remember the bizarre sit-down of that racehorse.
I think it is the most extraordinary occurrence in racing ever.
Those are the kinds of stories that made the not-so-great moments in sports and some of the not-so-great moments in sports so much fun. Now, backed by popular demand, the not-so-great moments in sports, take 3.
The winning run is at second with 2 out. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buster. Here comes Nolly in the mix, winning it. And people are trying to take anger. Police are trying to move into the ring to protect Hunter. And the rage is...
Maneuver, man. How do you do all that? The bell's 5:08.
And he said, stop with it, man. I want to talk to you a minute. Open the case and that would be full of money.
I almost can't believe what I'm about to tell you. Yes, after almost 5 years and 44 straight losses, the Columbia line.
Hi, I'm Tim McCarver. Since we began this series, sports bloopers have gone big time and even on occasion prime time. I mean, no newscast is complete today without a spectacular shot of an athlete losing his or her balance and dignity. But as much as we enjoy those embarrassing oopses, that's not what this series is really about. I will? Okay, I will. What we're about are great stories and people. Not just pratfalls and banana peels, but historic controversies, legendary bonehead plays, nefarious scandals, memorable aberrations, spontaneous lunacy, and the people who suffered these outrageous and amazing fortunes. Let me give you an example. In our original show, we noted a scoreless basketball game as one of the not-so-great moments in sports. Well, for take 3, we went back to North Dakota in 1925 to talk to 2 of the young ladies who starred in that classic. Today, of course, elite women athletes play at a remarkably sophisticated, intense level of sport. Like modern pioneer Nancy Lieberman, who has held her own in some men's leagues, they devote themselves to their game.
I want to set the standard of women's basketball so high that the next player that comes along is going to have to work her behind off.
But back in the roaring 20s, in Midwestern towns like Kensal, North Dakota, women were just starting to stir. Why, permission for them to sweat in public was a relatively recent development.
Kensal is only a little town of about 400, so you couldn't play football for that reason. Yeah, basketball was so very popular, and of course the townspeople didn't have too much to go out to see, so they came out and supported us.
What made the Kensal Pingree game memorable was that it turned out to be the basketball equivalent of a party no one came to. Not a basket was made or a free throw converted in 7 periods. The ultimate in futility, an unbreakable record.
The Pingree players wanted to quit. They were all tired out. But I just felt we should keep playing, and so we told them we wanted to play.
I can remember being tired as anything, being ready to quit, but you didn't dare if you wanted to live.
I remember the shoemaker at home, Mr. Cove, was an elderly man, and he came. He's the only reason I come to these games is because I come for the girls, and, you know, several people tell you that, and so we began to think we're pretty important.
There were quite a number of items in the paper. I have several of them where it said that how famous we'd been all over the state and even out of the state.
Oh yes, despite all the zeros, there was a winner. Kensal won on a coin flip. A coin flip. Why didn't somebody think of that on the night of April 18th or the morning of April 19th, 1981? Right here at McCoy Stadium, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. That was the night and morning when the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Rochester Red Wings of the International League played to a 2-2 tie for 32 innings, 8 hours and 25 minutes. Sounds like a minor league career, doesn't it? They set 11 professional baseball records, including strikeouts. 60 of them. 60. Makes you think Nolan Ryan was pitching for both sides. Baseball's the only major team sport without a clock. So theoretically, a game could go on forever. This one nearly did. No pun intended, there were a lot of sleepy heads and dragging tails before it was over. And it wasn't over when it was over. Another close one. How long was this game? Longer than any scoreboard, that's for sure.
The normal curfew time for any league, minor league, major league, is no inning can start past 12:50 a.m. Well, you know, it gets to be 1 o'clock, and obviously the managers are asking, well, what's the story? What's the curfew rule? And they said, look, here's our manual. There's nothing in here referring to a curfew. So we're going to play and play and play and play.
Among the future major leaguers who played in this epic, Cal Ripken Jr., Wade Boggs, Bobby Ojeda, and Mike Smithson.
There were quite a few fans to start the game out. You know, I think we're averaging probably 1,500 to 1,000 fans a game. I know at the end of the ball game, there were actually 20 fans left in the stands, and I can remember our general manager giving the 20 people who remained for the whole game season tickets for the remainder of the season.
Just over the flagpole out there, the sun was starting to come up, so we figured if nothing else, we couldn't have a sunrise service. At least it might get us a little warmer.
There was also a great deal of disbelief. You know, you're wondering, when was this going to end? I mean, I can't believe this is going on, or that some of these plays are being made. And it was almost like you're asking yourself, well, what's going to happen next?
Every day, Ernie Banks used to say, let's play two. Well, these guys started out playing one game and wound up playing nearly four.
Pawtucket Red Sox owner Ben Mondor and the general manager, Mike Tamburo, tried calling International League President Harold Cooper at his home in Ohio to make a plea for sanity. They couldn't reach him. He wasn't home. Eventually, he did come in around 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, give or take, and they got him on the phone, explained what was happening. So what he ordered everybody to do, look, finish out the inning that you're in now, which happened to be the 32nd, and that's it.
Naturally, the players didn't get home until nearly dawn of Easter Sunday. Pitcher Louis Aponte's wife, for one, didn't buy the story that he was out playing ball that late.
I let Louis out of the car, and I'm going to wait to make sure he gets in his house okay, and he walks up, and I see him knocking on the door, and nothing happens. And then he starts banging a little louder and a little louder, and I hear him screaming, but he's screaming in Spanish. And then all of a sudden I hear somebody screaming back at him in Spanish. So about 5 minutes later, after banging and screaming, he comes back down the car. He goes, hey, can you take me back to the ballpark? My wife doesn't believe we're playing baseball at 4:30 in the morning. She thinks I've been out drinking all night.
With the major leagues on strike, this minor league game was major.
When it was resumed in June, the media of the world literally came to McCoy Stadium to cover the completion of the longest game, which turned out to be 1 inning in about 15 minutes.
Here's the pitch, line drive, base hit left field. Dave Koza has won the longest game in baseball history with a single. You can see the PawSox now pouring onto the field as they have won it.
I'm not your superstar baseball player by any means, but I can always tell my grandkids that when they go to the Cooperstown Hall of Fame that their daddy might be in, they're in the Hall of Fame. I think they put the home plate, they got everybody to sign home plate. They signed the bat, the ball that was used, so I can always say I'm in the baseball's Hall of Fame.
In baseball, world-class futility can also happen in an instant with 3 errors.
They'll only be able to get one if they can get that. Here, John bobbles the ball and to held it. John does not normally make that kind of mistake. They're going to try to score again. And Tommy John should have stayed out of the way both times, but he's in there, and they'll go on, and he will. Let's see, they're going to let him score.
Yep.
Tommy should have stayed right on the mound.
Well, you're right, absolutely. He didn't field the ball cleanly, and then he hurried.
More futility, also at Yankee Stadium, as an improvisational vaudeville act.
There's the volley floater, and it's fouled back, and listen to the crowd. Hamilton had thrown the pitch to Tony Horton in Cleveland, and now he wants another one. And Hamilton gets inside. He says, all right, maybe I'll do it again. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Look at it. And he fouls it again. And Munson makes the catch. Holy cow, what a play by ThurmanMunson. And Tony Horton throws the bat in the air and then is held it and throws his hands in the air. And listen to this crowd go wild.
Tom Weiskopf found nothing funny about the 12th hole at the Masters tournament in 1980. After putting his tee shot into the creek on the notorious par 3, a one-shot penalty, Weiskopf pulled himself together and calmly took another ball from his caddy. Then another, and yet another. One of the top professional golfers, he clubbed, flubbed, stubbed, and dubbed 5 balls into the water. Remarkably, he behaved throughout this humiliating ordeal like a stoic sea captain standing on the bridge as his ship goes down. Maybe he should have screamed, or broken a few clubs, or gone for a swim, something, anything. Because maintaining his outward composure or hiding his frustration certainly didn't do him any good. He scored, by the way, a 10 over par 13. But he did learn from his mistakes. The next day, he shot a 7 on the hole. Columbia University's football team raised futility to an art form. Losing wasn't everything, it was the only thing. They lost 44 straight games. Students and alumni coped during the record streak with black humor. All players and coaches could do was to be grim and bear it.
Well, again, the record has been something that's come up within the media, and it's very important to the media. It's not important to me. We're building a football program, and I know it's redundant to you people. I'd like to say something magical for you, okay? But there is nothing magical to say other than just some good recruiting and hope for the best.
While sports are kept in perspective in the Ivy League, getting your butt whipped for years on end is carrying perspective too far for the students with sore butts.
That's what's really tough about it. Maybe I go to a party at night, somebody will come up and say, hey, you really, you guys really stink. And, you can't do anything about it or else you get kicked out of school, The hardest thing is taking it from the students, people who are supposed to support you who don't. It's not there.
Having overtaken Northwestern to become the losingest college team ever, Columbia's Lions roared onward and downward. After the 39th loss, the end of the agony was in sight with a late field goal attempt from makeable range. But the pressure of lifting the burden proved too much for the kicker and too awful for the Columbians. If the end was in sight, you couldn't see it from there.
Hey, nice try. Nice try.
This is one of the major liberal universities in America. And as Lionel Trilling said, any liberal who sees someone in a uniform playing a contact sport thinks they must be fascist.
Princeton smells just like a sewer.
5 games later, they did see it against Princeton, which interestingly enough was coached by a former Columbia coach.
Good evening and welcome to the College Football Scoreboard. I almost can't believe what I'm about to tell you. Yes, after almost 5 years and 44 straight losses, the Columbia Lions finally roared today, beating Princeton 16.
The victory was as famous for Columbia as beating Stanford in the 1934 Rose Bowl. They could go back now to being ordinary losers, though they face the future defiantly. Speaking of young lions, there was a fighter named the Battling Siki in the 20s who owned some real young lions and was involved in a fight right out of Hollywood. Paris, 1922. A dive, a fix has been arranged. And then in mid-fight, the fixed fighter changed his mind. Until the surprise ending, it was a typical case of a promoter trying to safeguard his box office attraction. The star light heavyweight champion George Carpentier, whose last fight, a KO by Jack Dempsey, had generated the first $1 million gate. Carpentier's opponent, Battling Siki. Siki was a West African who had been raised in France by a French actress, a gaudy character who even paraded around Paris with a lion cub on a leash. Siki later made a movie. Stéphane Laurent photographed it.
I remember it very clearly. It was exactly 66 years ago. But if I close my eyes, I see him coming in to the studio with a beautiful girl, blonde, a Dutch girl. I think he lived with her at that time. He must have been probably about 26 years old.
Before a crowd of 55,000, Siki signaled to the fixers early in the fight that he was proceeding as planned. But Carpentier, who may not have known about the fix, fought harder than Siki expected. Later on the movie set, he told the story of his turnabout.
Siki said, oh, well, the whole thing was all fixed up. I said, what do you mean? My manager fixed it up with the Carpentier people that I go down either the third or the fourth round. Carpentier thought, because I was faking, that he could hit me. I said before, all right, no, I take the money, but I don't want to be hurt. On the third round, Carpentier landed a right. Siki was on the floor, and Carpentier hissed to him. I say, I told you, get down, get down. And Siki got mad.
Confused by the choreography of the fix, what exactly he was supposed to do, Siki became enraged by Carpentier's hard punching and overwhelmed him, which shocked the referee because he was in on the deal too and overruled the KO.
Siki lost his mind, he said. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't want to be hurt. So I hit him, and before I knew, he was on the floor.
The incensed crowd wouldn't leave the arena until the verdict was changed.
They were so perplexed, the referees, that Carpentier was sitting there, so they quickly said that Battling Siki tripped him. They said he was disqualified. And an hour later, after the fight, the same evening, an hour later, the people were so enraged, they said it was a technical knockout for Siki. He became, a world celebrity. That's how he was engaged for the film. The filmmakers wanted to cash in on his instant fame. It is very funny that after 66 years we talk about it. Siki would laugh about it. He would be pleased.
Siki lost the title. He went to America, squandered his money and drank, and was murdered near Times Square at age 28. Boxing has attracted many scheming desperados, but a guy who robbed a bank of $21 million, then blew it by overpaying fighters in his quest to be a promoter? Meet Harold Smith.
I think this started out for Harold very much by accident. He had been a small-time scam artist back in the Baltimore area, and originally this embezzlement started out with his approaching a banker, playing on that banker's sympathies for Muhammad Ali, for underprivileged black youth, and getting the banker to carry some checks for him. It started out pretty small time, and as we told the jury at the time of trial, it started as a trickle, it grew into a stream, and eventually became a flood, $21 million wide.
If a brother took $21 million, he'd been indicted that night. And if I had $21 million, we wouldn't be standing here.
He used to walk through the lobbies of the hotel with those airplane pilot cases. And he say, stop, wait a minute, I want to talk to you a minute. He opened up the case, and that would be full of money. And he pulled out a little piece of paper that he was looking for in there while he rumbled through all the money, rumbled through the big bundles of money, you know, and get the paper out to discuss whatever he wanted to discuss about whatever particular situation he wanted to talk about.
A glib con artist, Smith used his mouth as a six-shooter, collaborating with a Wells Fargo bank officer, Ben Lewis, to get the money.
The branch settlement system is designed to assist a bank in accounting for transfers of funds between branches of the same bank. And it doesn't do that with little furry munchkins shuttling bags of cash back and forth between the branches. It does it by keeping a running balance sheet of debits and credits on behalf of each branch in question, and they're all purely paper transactions. Since it's a continually changing account, there's hundreds of thousands of transactions going between branches any day, there's no fixed point at which somebody can take a snapshot of that account and decide exactly how much that account ought to have in it.
First thing he showed me was money. $2 million in cash. And all I had to do was sign a piece of paper saying I would defend my title against the world heavyweight champion, Muhammad Ali. And I didn't do it. It scared me.
He had scheduled a fight which he intended in the fine Don King tradition to call This Is It. He figured that with all that high-profile action on the same card between the live gate, cable TV, European rights, satellite, what have you, that he had an opportunity to gross perhaps $100 million. The computer system we talked about earlier was such that had Harold and his confederates made back the 21 million and change, they could have replaced that money without the bank ever becoming aware of it.
We're going to change my name to Harold Robin Hood Smith.
Why?
Well, I can't think of a more appropriate name than that. Because all I've ever done all my life, I've never taken anything illegal in my life. But whatever I've taken, or whatever I have received, I've always shared it with others. So all my fighters now, they run around and call me Robin Hood.
You got to admit, he was some maneuverer. Man, he was a maneuverer, man. How can you do all that? The Wells Fargo Bank. I says, you are one smart brother. If you can really pull this off, how are you doing it? He says, champ, I got ways. My wife's father's rich. They loaned me a lot of money to start, and I never looked back.
If you can believe it, the irrepressible Smith is still trying to get back into boxing after 5 years in jail. Either it's human nature or anything that vaguely sounds like boxing, but even the soapbox derby was afflicted by scandal.
Back in 1973, really, the Derby was just like motherhood, apple pie, and the American flag. It was just the all-American image. And for something that serious to occur really hurt the Derby in general. A lot of people thought that a lot of different people were cheating, and that's why they felt that they had to cheat maybe to be successful. I really don't believe that entirely, but there were things that kids did, and some of it was extra weight. They used to have ankle weights. They even caught a few kids with lead jock straps on. Now, back in those days, it was a boys-only race.
The scandal shocked some corporate sponsors into dropping out of this junior Indianapolis 500, and it's really never been quite the same. Until then, it had barely veered off its 953-foot course, accidentally or on purpose. But its popularity and prizes led to its corruption and downfall. 14-year-old Jimmy Gronin's sleek winner, built by his uncle Robert Lang, far exceeded the contest rules. which stipulated the driver had to build it, and for no more than $75 in materials. Well, it was discovered that this 21st century soapbox was made of molded plastic, was put through wind tunnel tests, and affixed to its nose a magnet.
I think with having the magnet in the car that it really gave him that little slight edge to win, but he had a very good car. It was engineered very sophisticated, very beautifully, but the magnet was kind of the last added touch that really pulled him to victory. I think without the magnet, I believe that his car was good enough. He probably would have come in second place, though, without it.
Jimmy Gronin had a short-lived moment of glory, but of course, he didn't get the scholarship.
A lot of people wonder really how the magnet worked itself, and what it was is that up on the starting plates at Derby Downs, when the nose of the car is up on the 3 paddles, there's a split second after that paddle falls before the car starts rotating down the hill, where with the magnet, it pulled right with it. When the paddle fell, because it was a very thick metal paddle on there, it pulled right with it, and it gave him probably, well, at least 2 to 3 inches at the start, which at the start means a good 2 to 3 feet at the bottom of the hill, because you want to get that jump early in the race. We didn't have any criminal charges towards Bob Lang, but they did back in Boulder, Colorado. And from what I understand, he was fined $2,000, which he had to give to a boys club organization, and he was not allowed to take part in any soapbox derby activities throughout the whole country for 2 years.
And so the All-American Soapbox Derby gave new meaning to the term adulterated. Think about this for a minute. In Paris, fans insisted that an unfair decision be changed and got their way. Cheers. In Beverly Hills, a fan decided he wanted to be a boxing promoter, so he robbed a bank. Boo City. And in Akron, Ohio, a fan screwed up a kid's game. Can you believe it? Fans, you can't live without them, although sometimes when they carry fanaticism to individual or collective tantrums, you'd like to try. Just watch this stuff. Tom Harmon of Michigan, one of the best college runners ever, celebrated his 21st birthday in 1940 by scoring on 3 long runs against California. This prompted an overwrought Cal fan to jump onto the field and try to do what his team couldn't do, tackle Harmon. And he had just about as much success. Nor Great Britain's infamous fan hooligans, for that matter. When hometown favorite Alan Minter defended his middleweight championship against Marvin Hagler, things got ugly, and not just Minter's bleeding eye.
Minter's left eye, and it stopped! It stopped in the 3rd round, and Hagler's on his knees. He said he was the rightful champion, and he's won it in 3 rounds, and people are throwing beer cans. One's landed on me. Beer cans are being hurled in all over the ring. There's a fight started over Hagler. Somebody's attacking him. And there is chaos here. Absolute chaos. I'm smothered in beer, so are my colleagues around me. I've been struck on the head by a bottle. And this is the worst scenes we've ever seen at Wembley in any boxing ring in this country. It's absolute chaos. The crowd are mad with this.
In Montreal, after star Maurice the Rocket Richard was suspended for attacking a referee, the Canadiens fans freaked out.
Well, I think they were waiting for me to make a bad move when they suspended me for the last 3 games of the season. A few weeks before in Toronto, I hit one of the linesmen with my glove. There was somebody holding me from behind, and I don't remember his name. It was a big guy, and he hold me from behind. I turned around, I hit him with my glove, and he gave me a $500 fine.
Before a crucial game with Detroit, seething fans waited for Commissioner Clarence Campbell to show up. Provocatively, he did. He should have gone fishing instead.
I always said that I don't think he was alone to make that suspension. He was with the owners of each club, and they were after me to get the suspension, especially for the playoff. I don't think he was alone in that deal. I think he made a bad mistake there.
The Red Wings took a commanding lead, turning an emotional scene explosive. Trying to show he couldn't be intimidated, Campbell showed that he simply misunderstood the situation.
I don't know why he came to the Forum. He should have stayed at home and watched the game on television. He didn't have to come to the Forum at all. He had a lot of people phoning him not to go to the game. I don't know why he came down.
Minutes after Campbell got the message, the fire department stopped the game and closed the Forum.
I was really surprised to see the people doing things like that, because they kept going on till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, breaking windows on St. Catherine Street, and I had to go the next morning to the radio and TV to ask the people to stop things like that.
While their playoff hopes were dashed without Richard, fans trashed everything they could. If ever there was a time when hometown fans should have been humorless, in the extreme, it was in the Ivy League hamlet of Hanover, New Hampshire in 1940. It was November in the North Country, and mighty Cornell had come to town to extend its 18-game unbeaten string against Dartmouth. And a referee named Red Frizzell gave Cornell 5 downs to score the winning touchdown. Gratefully, they did. Underdog Dartmouth was leading Cornell 3-0 with time running out. Cornell was driving to the Dartmouth 6-yard line.
Our goal at that time was to beat Dartmouth by as many points as we could. But I have to admit that going into the game, we were not charged up because we had beaten this team 26-0 the year before. And we figured to swamp them, but it didn't work out that way.
Behind the tranquility of Dartmouth, feverish protests were lodged by sports writers and others who had counted to 5. The referee agreed to study the films.
We got down to around, as I recall, around the 7-yard line. And that's when the 5 downs was supposed to have taken place.
Newsreels were collected to go back to the scene of the crime and examine the evidence. The clue to where the ref lost count, however, wasn't in the films. Fighting the clock, Dartmouth had taken an illegal timeout after 3rd down and was penalized back to the 6, from where the 4th down pass into the end zone was incomplete, which should have ended the game.
Dartmouth has very small facilities to seat a great big crowd, so consequently they all gathered around the sidelines and in the stands, and it seemed like you were playing before 300,000 people. Now, the weather was bad. It was very exciting. We had a lot at stake. This was one of the biggest moments in Dartmouth's history, if they could pull this thing off. And I can see in the confusion that Red Frizzell might have made a mistake, and maybe he didn't.
Then the historic 5th down, 5 seconds to play.
Presumably, the fans were confused by the penalty too, believing it had canceled a down. So almost everyone went home convinced Cornell had staged a dramatic rally to pull it out. But after the ref looked at the films, he apologized for what he called a grave mistake. And Cornell, though still entitled to the victory, voluntarily forfeited it.
Somewhere along the line, the president of Cornell, who I believe was a Dartmouth graduate, gave the game back to Dartmouth. I don't say that's why he gave it back, but that's what happened. As far as the vote goes, I'm not sure. I never saw it. I know how I voted.
The action of the Cornell and Dartmouth authorities in correcting the score comes as a forceful reminder that fair play is the essence of intercollegiate sport, and that the typically American game of football is not fought by bitter enemies, but played by friendly rivals.
It usually takes a major event to dramatize a bonehead play, because in fact, costly mistakes, mental and physical, are common. So how about a jockey blowing the biggest race in the land? By misjudging the finish line? And the jockey is Willie Shoemaker? That, folks, is a boner.
9-3-year-old off and away in the mile and a quarter classic is worth $107,000 to the winner.
I was in the press box looking over the shoulder of a tall man who was calling the chart of the race for the daily racing form. And he turned and said, he bobbled.
The top of the stretch, Federal Hill has run out of gas. Iron Liege is ahead with Gallant Man closing the gap. Now watch closely, things happen fast.
Just beyond the 16th pole, and just as Willie stood up in the saddle, the second horse came past him and won the Kentucky Derby, and Willie Shoemaker lost the Derby, but never denied that he made a mistake.
Ironically, a year before, he had done the same thing to lose a big race in California.
If Willie had not made that terrible boner, and he would be the first one to concede that he made an awful mistake, Gallant Man would have been a Triple Crown winner. And it was after that, incidentally, if you ever go to a racetrack, look at the finish line, you see a bullseye on a pole alongside the finish line. That was put in after the bobble of Willie Shoemaker in the Kentucky Derby on Gallant Man.
If you want to be famous for blowing one, the World Series is another good event to do it. Mickey Owen is one of those who did.
Well, that was an era of really good baseball. The Yankees were really a dynasty back in those days. They had some of the greatest ball players in the history of the game, and they had them playing in their prime at the same time. And, of course, the Dodgers were on the rise. At that time, they came up with McPhail as the general manager, and they brought in some good ball players and developed some good young ball players of their own.
The year was 1941. The Brooklyn Dodgers, who had never won a World Series, led the mighty Yankees 4-3, 1 out away from tying the series at 2 games apiece. Ace reliever Hugh Casey needed only to retire Tommy Henrich.
When Hugh Casey threw the 3-2 pitch with 2 men out and nobody on in the top of the 9th inning of the 4th game of the World Series, and that 3-2 pitch was a low curveball that Tommy Henrich swung at and missed for strike 3, and the end of the ball game. That ball was not caught by Mickey Owen for several reasons. One, it was a big curveball breaking sharply way down low. Remember, to the catcher's bail right hand, that's the most difficult play for the catcher. And also, the ball almost hit Henrich in the ankles. It was way down, and Owen never said that he was crossed up by the pitch or anything else. All he said was, I just didn't get it.
If I could have caught it, I always had to caught it in my teeth, if I could have, but I didn't miss many like that. I really, I couldn't believe it wasn't in my mitt when I looked and it wasn't there, and I turned my head. I knew it had to be going in that direction. I seen it going, and that was the most miserable thing I've ever had happen in my life.
The reaction was a stunned silence as far as Brooklyn was concerned, and the silence remained as the Yankees went ahead and turned the ball game around.
The Yankees scored 4 runs and broke every heart in Brooklyn.
I know that after the game, in the press room, I saw McPhail standing by the bar, just crying. Here he was running the Dodgers, and here's a grown man who had come through World War I. He's just standing there crying, and Owens was crying in the dressing room. So I understand.
Everybody's sitting facing their locker, not saying anything, and that's generally the way that it is when a real thing happens like that, where the rug's pulled out from under you. They're just sitting right there, can't believe it.
The saddest words of tongue or pen, what might have been.
Well, to be a Red Sox fan, you are a professional victim to start with. It went back to 1918, and it appears that's the last time the Red Sox won the World Series. And I would say that in all these years that have transpired, a series of mysterious events worthy of the Twilight Zone have caused the Red Sox not to win it for whatever the reasons might be.
So the winning run is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
If they were to build a Hall of Fame and call it the Hall of Shame, Bill Buckner's failure to pick up that ground ball would indeed, as far as New Englanders are concerned, and Red Sox fans all over the world, be the monument, the zenith of ridiculousness. All it was a dinky little ground ball. That's all it was.
Even for long-suffering Red Sox faithful, this was a killer. Many of them agonized their grief to radio host Andelman that night.
Eddie, you're upset.
Yeah, of course I'm upset.
My word is heartsick. And I'm a real good Red Sox fan, or I have been, but this is it. They ripped out my soul tonight, Eddie, and I haven't got any more to give.
Eddie, the pain. The pain. Something, I'm still shaking. Can you believe it? Nightmare of nightmares. I can't believe I'm sick. This has made me physically ill.
The station logged 150,000 phone calls because they had a meter to measure them. Some people took it in the proper spirit. I tried to make light of it. I was crying on the inside because I'd bet a few bucks myself. And my little contribution was to tell everybody that night a promise, which I have since delivered. I have prepaid my own funeral, and I have prepaid my own tombstone. And what it really says is, Eddie Andelman, he never lived long enough to see the Red Sox win it all.
The poor Red Sox. It seems like for 70 years they've been paying penance for the all-time heavyweight champion of boners, selling Babe Ruth to the Yankees. I mean, other boners were lapses. The Red Sox planned that one. But still, I think it's time we let him off the hook. What do you think?
I forgive him.
Yeah, sure, a Yankee fan. He's still paying penance for George Steinbrenner.
No way.
Talk about your not-so-great moments in sports. But seriously, most not-so-great moments in sports are great, as we've seen again on this Take 3. Can Take 4 be that far behind? Well, we'll see. For the HBO staff, I'm Tim McCarver, and thanks a lot for watching.